we're really delighted to be hosting Edward Rios with the Department of Energy. And Edward heads up he's the head commercialization executive for the Office of Technology Transitions. And he's been in that role for a number of years. He's been with the Department of Energy for a number of years and has been in this role now for some time as well. But he brings a combination of technical and financial expertise that gives him a unique perspective on how an innovative energy technology can be successfully deployed on a commercial scale, a perspective that meshes well with OTT's mission. As many of you may know, the US government holds a number of patents and does a lot of work on the research and development side within our agencies. And the Office of Technology Transition provides us with an opportunity, a business opportunity specifically, to take that research and knowledge and technology and turn it into viable business solutions for our communities to actually take advantage of the research and development that is going on. So he currently serves as OTT's hydrogen and nuclear sector lead, where he engages with internal and external stakeholders to make them aware of OTT's programs and resources. And he actually does many things within his role. So I'm not going to get too far into it because I know he's going to be touching on many of these today, but we just want to take a minute to thank Edward for joining us in the middle of his vacation from his beach house. And we are just so grateful that you took the time to join us and have this conversation with our members. I think for businesses that are looking at new products and services they can expand into, I think this is the exact conversation for them to be listening to. So we really want to thank you, Edward, for joining us today. And also joining us to moderate today's conversation is Anurag Verma, the head of global government and public affairs for Infosys. Anurag heads up a global technology, the global government and public affairs piece for a global technology consulting firm, Infosys, where he develops and executes public policy strategies involving national and regional government in each of the company's key markets, including Dallas-Fort Worth, as well as Canada, Europe, Australia, and India, as well as other parts of the US. In his role, Anurag has driven the company's efforts to integrate into its business model the holistic engagement of stakeholders in each community in which it does business. And this initiative includes forging partnerships in each national market and submarket with government, business organizations, tech industry associations, educational institutions, community organizations, and others. Prior to joining Infosys, Anurag served as public policy counsel before the US Congress and administration on behalf of foreign sovereign clients, the Indian private sector, as well as others. And so he just brings a wealth of information and knowledge on how companies can engage with the government sector. And we're really grateful to both Anurag and Edward for joining us today to talk about how our members can engage with our government and really help to commercialize these opportunities. As Trammell mentioned, these are business opportunities. And so it's wonderful for us to partner with the government to bring them to reality. So with that, Anurag and Edward, I'm going to hand it over to you, and we will continue this conversation.
Thank you, Neil. Special thanks to the U.S.-India Chamber of Commerce for Dallas-Fort Worth for putting together today's events. We at Infosys are always appreciative of such a forward-looking business organization that is regularly trying to take practical and yet visionary steps towards increasing business between the Dallas-Fort Worth region and India and all things in between. So thank you, Neil, and thank you to your team. Well, welcome everyone to today's discussion. We couldn't have thought of probably a better speaker, a representative of the federal government, and a representative of the forward-looking future of the development of technology in the energy space than Edward Rios. So first of all, good afternoon, Edward. How are you?
Hey, how are you, Anurag?
I'm
It's great
good.
to
I'm
see
good. I mean, that's
Great
a
to see you.
fancy beach house you have in the back there.
Well, I gotta confess, it's a beach house. We found a nice hotel in Chino Peak,
Nice.
Virginia.
Well,
So
great. Well,
and
look, thank you. I think we're all grateful for your time,
my
and
pleasure.
we really look forward to really learning from you about what the federal government is doing in the energy space and the commercialization of energy. But before we get there, the other part of your bio that we didn't quite get to when Neil gave the intro, it says you hail from Florida. A little birdie told me that is actually obscuring your relationship to the North Texas region. Would you like to give us any background there?
Yeah, sure. So I've lived kind of everywhere. You know, I was born in Phoenix. So my mom and dad are actually immigrants from Bolivia, in South America. They came here in the 70s. And so my dad moved around a little bit. And they moved to New Jersey when they first came to the States. And then his career took him to Phoenix, Arizona, where I was. And then shortly afterwards, they moved to Oklahoma. And that's where my dad established his career. And we ended up in a town called Lawton. So maybe some of you have heard of Lawton. It is the home of Fort Sill, Oklahoma, a large military base. And as a result, there was two things if you're a child in Lawton that you have to be. You have to be an OU Sooner fan, and you have to be a Dallas Cowboys fan. So as a result, I had a lot of interaction with Texans. One of my dad's dear friends from Bolivia actually moved to Dallas, so we would go to Dallas and visit quite a bit. And then our sister city in Lawton was Wichita Falls. Wichita Falls is just down the street. So lots of interaction with Texas. You know, I can't, and my sister actually went to UT Austin for grad school for a year. So certainly have friends there. Haven't been in a while, but hope to be there soon. Our goddaughter lives there as well in the Baylor. Where's the Waco? Sorry.
Yeah.
So we hope to be there soon.
Well, great. It's great to establish that connection, because at the end of the day, that's the kind of thing that keeps people on, right? They feel
That's
like
right.
talking to an honorary Texan. My claim to fame is that our company's head office is in Dallas. It's in Richardson, and my brother and all my nieces and nephews live in Flower Mound. So there we are. So I've got my own connection. So let's talk a little bit, and let's make sure, Edward, you are just a little bit hard to hear. So if you get a little closer to your microphone, that would be great.
Oh, sure. How about now?
Yeah, much better. Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about OTT, the Office of Technology Transitions within the Department of Energy. And then we'll go just broadly about the office, the mission, and then we'll go a little bit more into the world of commercialization.
Sure. No, pleasure to do that. So OTT is a small office, I would say, as compared to some of the other offices within the Department of Energy. But our mandate is very broad. And we've been around, if I'm not mistaken, for about 6 or 7 years. We were created by legislation. And what our mandate is to accelerate the deployment of technology that's coming out of the department. So some of you may or may not be familiar with the department, but we do a variety of things. We do research and development. We do environmental management of nuclear sites. We deal with nuclear security. And of course, we deal with energy efficiency and renewable energy in industries. I think that's probably what we're best known. We're even a financing arm. We have a financing arm known as the Loan Process, where I have worked in most during my career at DOE. And what we're trying to do in OTT, first of all, make the public, the private sector, aware of all these programs. And specifically, what we want to do is assist in commercializing a lot of the technology that is successfully being developed throughout the department. We have national laboratories all over the country. We have 17 national laboratories. So we fund national laboratories in all the sectors of energy. We work with universities. We have large cooperative agreements and grants that go to universities. And then finally, of course, the private sector itself. We do a lot of work with the private sector. And there is, it's quite easy to say that we do a lot of this type of work. But to think about it more, this work, these technologies aren't really going to help anybody if they're not deployed to the market, right? So that is really where there's a lot of work to be done, especially now in this administration, which is really pushing the climate agenda and clean technology. And so this office, OTT, is focused on not only the national laboratories, where a lot of funding goes to, but on private sector entities that want to use technology coming out of the DOE and use it as part of their own commercial deployment.
So
that's really, really important.
Excellent. I want to use that as a jumping off point here. So when we talk about commercialization, right? So many in the audience are looking at various technologies, sustainable technologies, renewable technologies, and such, and they're at the smaller side. Help explain from your perspective, kind of the life cycle of commercialization. Where it begins, how at the OTT, how you guys view that life cycle.
Sure. So there's an acronym. It's kind of a funny acronym. It's RDD&D, right? Which stands for Research, Development, Deployment, and Demonstration. And so this is really, if you want to think of it, the life cycle of a technology, right? So you start with an idea. You start with an idea. You shop that idea around to dig into it, and the DOE has several funding opportunities for researchers to apply to in different sectors in different areas. And so you apply for these grants or cooperative agreements, and you're awarded money, hopefully, so you can begin working on this idea on a very small scale, what we like to say the lab scale, right? Just you're at a bench scale, or maybe you're doing modeling using software. You're developing software to model some of your ideas, and so that's kind of the research. You want to see if it works on this small scale, and you tweak it to do some more of the development. But all that, this small scale effort, we call R&D, right? So now, if you're successful, then we're going into like the prototyping, demonstration, and this means now you're scaling up your idea, right? You're not scaling it up to a level that is market ready. Of course, we're still far away, but you're scaling up to reduce the risk. You're always thinking about reducing risk of new technology. So you start R&D, you move to demonstration, and now we're talking about some more money. You're going to need some more money, right? Ideally, there are some private sector entities that will fund this, right? So venture capitalists tend to do some of this work. Some strategic investors in the sector might do it. Some big balance sheet companies that might do their own research, and of course the government can still be involved, right? Now we're talking about developing a prototype of your idea. Now we're talking about real hard, tangible type assets that are not on the lab scale. And so the amount of effort that's needed, the amount of capital that's needed is now starting to grow. So just to throw numbers out at you, R&D, you might have 500,000 to $1 million. Demonstration, prototype, maybe a couple million just to get that prototype working. And again, the prototype still not ready for market. You just want to make sure that you're scaling up, working out the kinks. And so that's the next phase. So Now the third phase, the demonstration. This is a very, very tricky phase, especially in the energy sector, because when we're talking about clean energy technology, we're talking about a lot of capital that's needed. In other industries, it might not be the case. The software industry is certainly not the case where you need a lot of capital to get your products to market. But in the energy, especially clean tech, you need a lot of capital. So remember, we've done an R&D phase. We were successful there. We've done a prototyping phase, where we're successful. Now we're continuing to scale up, and now we're doing a demonstration phase. And this phase is very critical because if you're successful here, theoretically, you could be ready for the market. So demonstrations tend to be rather large. I would say, just to give people a sense, 10 to 15 to $20 million could certainly be the capital needed for a demonstration phase in the clean tech sector. That kind of money will be really hard to come by. Very, very difficult. Venture capitalists no longer play in that field, in that type of money. Private sector entities certainly don't want to spend all their capital on those type of on that phase either. There's no return yet on this. There's no customers for this phase of technology. So this is where the government is really critical, really, really critical, where the government can come in, provide some of the capital, but will not provide it all. They need a strong private sector entity that's willing to go in on this risk, because believe me, there's still a lot of risk at this scale. So all along, we're working on a technical problem, but by the time you're getting to this demonstration, now you got to start thinking about your market. You want to start thinking about the financial feasibility of the technology. We want to make sure that it's not going into a market that is not growing, that there is no potential there. So we really can't forget about the financial and market viability of the technology. What we're trying to do in OTT is move that thought process a little up, because historically there has been this thought of getting the technology technically ready and then worrying about the market capability a little later in the process. OTT is certainly trying to change that thought process and move it further up in this life cycle of technology, right? So if we're in the demonstration now, let's say we are successful, we successfully demonstrate that a technology is capable of producing whatever it is it needs to produce at a scale that's somewhat significant. Then, during this time, we're developing a strong business plan for the technology. Then we might be ready for this last phase, which is deployment. So deployment is the commercial phase of the technology. And this is where consumers can start using the technology. So in energy, we could be talking about an electricity generating technology, right? Or we could be talking about a new type of fuel. We could be talking about new types of technologies that produce electricity, like solar and wind or geothermal. But at this phase, this is where financing really becomes critical. The government will no longer be awarding money. These commercial scale technologies now have to prove to the market that they can survive on their own, right? And so that is the deployment, the D in the RD, D and D. So I went through it very quickly, but that is kind of how it can develop over time, a new technology.
Great. Thank you for that. And just an administrative note as I go on to my next question is that as the audience has questions, please put them in the chat, and that we will get to them a little later on in the discussion. This is only going to get more and more thought-provoking. So here's the next question. So if I heard you right, you were saying that so far, the DOE has been focused on the early part of the life cycle, and OTT is trying to push that out further. But let's talk a little bit, because much of our audience are small business, some are just getting going. So in the early part of the life cycle, what are the obstacles that you have seen from experience at DOE, OTT? Where are the stumbling blocks coming out of the gate early on in the life cycle?
Yeah, so it's a great question. It's a great question. So small business is key. Small business is really, really key because this effort of getting clean tech cannot rely only in the hands of large companies. It's really critical that small businesses are also involved. We've probably seen a lot of this in the Silicon Valley, where a lot of startups have started, right? You know, one challenge that I've seen for small business is just the amount of capital that's needed, right? So again, the energy technology and the energy sector requires capital. It really requires capital. So for small businesses to get involved, first of all, they have to have a really strong background in the sector, or have access to it. You know, have access to individuals that have a very strong background. Secondly, what I've always seen with successful small businesses is they have investors, backers that are willing to stick through the difficult times of this development cycle that I've described, right? I mean, there's the risk profile of the development cycle really stays high and doesn't really come down after really successful deployment, and it really starts coming down. So you need very strong strategic investors in the small businesses that know the sector really well and that are willing to stick through the difficult times. Because for a small business to survive on its own in this sector is difficult. And I've seen that happen over and over again. Small businesses tend to have really, really great ideas. But executing on that idea takes a definite expertise. You know, you need people that are familiar with the research world, people that are familiar with the market analysis, people that are familiar with the financing options for technology. So I tend to see small businesses that are very focused technically on a technology, and they're full of PhDs, full of really capable individuals, but they still don't have that expertise in what it takes to bring it to market. And I would certainly emphasize for any small business to have individuals, financial advisors, market experts that can help them guide where their technology can reside.
So in your mission at OTT of commercialization, where is the nexus of, if our audience members are hearing you and you're really resonating with them right now, where is the intersection between either OTT or broader DOE and these entrepreneurs that are getting going in the sector?
Yeah, so OTT specifically, we have our own programs. Again, we're not a big office as compared to DOE, but our mission and my job is to think of ourselves as we're developing business for the department, you know, so business development. And so we have some programs that are geared toward accelerators and incubators. We have some programs that are geared towards small businesses teaming up with national lab researchers where they can work together on helping some of these technologies get out to the lab. And by the way, I hope everyone does take my contact information. I hope this is a relationship we can continue, because my job is to talk to anyone that's interested in teaming up with DOE. So I put that out there. But what we also can do, and what my job is that we know a lot of people throughout the department. We're kind of the gateway to the department. So for any small business individuals that are interested in teaming up with maybe our solar office on opportunities, or our wind office, our nuclear office of nuclear energy, and they just don't know where to start, that's what OTT is here for. We are here. We are the technology welcomers. We're trying to open up the doors of DOE to all that are interested, because in our office we have individuals that have worked in all of these sectors. They've worked in DOE for a long time. They've worked in the private sector, so we know a lot of people. We might not have a lot of money to award, but we certainly have a lot of expertise, and that's where the nexus that's where our value really is.
That's great. I mean, and reading your bio and seeing your many years background at DOE, knowing how these federal government agencies work, sometimes it's the most valuable thing to know what the nooks and the crannies of the DOE office
Absolutely.
building.
DOE is no exception. It is a huge place.
And I'll take a minute to give a plug to your colleague and my friend Jigar Shah, who's running your former workplace, the loan programs office. So I think there's a number of ways for DOE to help small businesses. And if you're okay with it, I'll have the team from the chamber put your information into the chat, and others can.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's great. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit here and turn a little bit to your background in nuclear, and I think more for illustration purposes, so we can go one level deeper on an example or an illustration, and something that you would know very well from your role as an executive in that area. As you know, the U.S. and India many years ago formed a cooperation agreement that many on this call who are followers of the U.S.-India space, the U.S.-India Nuclear Energy Agreement, came together and did. So it's on the minds of those of us who watch U.S. and India work together. Now, in India, they never quite got the nuclear energy industry to where they had envisioned. However, as you look at the nuclear energy industry here, and you start with the small businesses and go forward, would love an illustration using your background in the nuclear energy industry of how OTT, working with the broader DOE, was able to help commercialize in that sector specifically.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's not an easy one. It's the nuclear industry is quite complicated, and it has its own challenges. I started working in the industry just a few years ago because I was actually helping to finance some of the projects that were being proposed in the United States. And let me give a little background, just in case some of the audience members don't quite know some of the challenges with nuclear. So nuclear in this country, and I'm sure India would probably would go through the same kind of timeline, but nuclear in the 70s was really, really hot. There was a lot of construction. We built several nuclear facilities in the 70s and 80s and the 60s. But then it started to fade away. And I would say probably in the last 30 years, we might have completed 1 or 2 nuclear facilities. Currently, the US is constructing 1, which is located in Georgia, the Vogtle plant. And that facility has gone through a lot of challenges. So needless to say, nuclear is very, very expensive. There is a lot of regulation around the nuclear industry, which can be also quite challenging, and rightfully so, right? Rightfully so. We need a lot of regulation around nuclear, and so for companies that want to get still there,
yes,
okay. For companies that want to get involved in the nuclear industry, it takes quite a commitment. It takes quite a commitment because it will take years and years to develop a project in this country. You need, first of all, you need the regulator to be on board, and to get their license is a process in itself. And then because the amount of capital we're talking about, you need strong backers, really, really strong. There's only really a few big balance sheet companies that would be able to really back a new project, right? what tends to happen, what has been happening with these facilities is that there tends to be cost overruns, timelines, deadlines seem to be passed. So there needs to be an entity that's willing to put in the extra capital that will most likely occur for nuclear projects. What is really exciting now, though, is there is a new wave of advanced nuclear reactors that are kind of in this demonstration phase that I described earlier. They have gone through their R&D phase. They have gone through some prototyping, and now there's a few that are actually in the demonstration phase. And this particular group of nuclear technology are called small modular reactors, and you'll hear me use the acronym SMR. And these types, this new technology is very exciting. Why? It's because there's no longer they are taking a new approach to construction. Now, the current fleet of nuclear reactors are very large, centralized facilities. So when we're talking about capacity, the way we measure capacity for electricity generating facilities are in megawatts, right? So for a nuclear facility now, for these large centralized facilities, we may be talking 500 to 1,000 megawatts, maybe. Now we're talking a gigawatt, type facilities, and these could be running on the order of $10 to $20 billion with a B, okay? Small modular reactors now take a different approach. Small modular reactors are small, and if we're talking capacity, maybe 50 megawatts, right? They're able to be constructed off-site, believe it or not, in a manufacturing facility. So that allows the developer to actually just buy the module and plug it in at their site, right? As long as they have fuel and all the utilities there, as opposed to the large centralized facilities, which are constructed on site, right? Now, the beauty of a small modular reactor, let's say it's a 50 megawatt, just to give you a scale. You can put together maybe 10 of these modules. And now what do you have? You have 500 megawatts, which is the equivalent of some of these large centralized reactors. However, the construction risk is much smaller because they have already been constructed off-site. And the Department of Energy is actually, there is a program called the Advanced Reactor Demonstration Program. Very exciting. We just awarded 2 awards, a couple $100 million. So we're talking a lot of money to demonstrate these types of small reactors. And if it's successful, then what I could see is the US will now become a leader in this technology.
So it's an example of, it's an example of you taking something that was probably a development to demonstration, and eventually getting to deployment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if there is a successful, then the US could become a leader in this technology and begin exporting it out to its.
Yeah. And I think if on the US-India, I'm sort of wrap the part about the US-India piece.
Yeah.
I think that was one of it, is there was a vision on deployment, but not enough hard work and money spent in the in-between, even though they were talking about modular, but it just never got off the ground. I did want to just transition, because I know we're going to go to Q&A in a minute, and just again, anyone who has a question, please put it in the Q&A on the chat. I wanted to go to just the other pieces of your background and your current job that we haven't touched upon. Please tell us a little bit more about your STEM outreach efforts and what you're working on and what you're trying to accomplish with the STEM outreach.
Absolutely. So that is a unique aspect of our office. It's the STEM outreach. So obviously, we're talking about commercialization. We're talking about getting technologies to market. But let's not forget, we need trained professionals in these areas to help bring those to market. So we're also focused on the next generation of professionals working in commercialization. And as a result, and I know there might be some universities in the audience, I would encourage them to seek this out. But we have a toolkit. It's called the STEM toolkit, the university toolkit, and it's a product that we put together when my predecessor was who was preceding me in this effort, had put together a product that summarized all the opportunities that universities could take advantage of if they wanted to work with the department or its national labs. And so DOE, like I said, is a big place. And we have national labs spread out all over the country. And each one of these national labs has its own programs. And so you could go to like 17 different websites and, you know, try to find all these different programs that are available to students, undergrad and graduate, even high school, to students that, I'm sorry, to university administrators, educators, even facility administrators. All of these programs are described in this toolkit in one nice package. So there's no need to like scour all these different resources. And this toolkit, my predecessor actually used it to market OTT and its programs to different universities. I know he talked to community colleges and minority supporting institutions. And I hope I have been trying to build on this work. But let me emphasize that this toolkit is free. It's on our website. We just did a revision a few months ago to update it. There are internship programs. There are fellowship programs for both undergrad, grad, postdoc. There are high school programs at all over the country because our national labs are all over the country. And so I would encourage everyone to please take a look. If there's something that looks interesting, again, I'm a contact for anyone who'd like to learn more, and we can certainly have a meeting and discuss it. I might not be able to take the meeting myself, but someone in my office or someone else would certainly help.
So thank you for that. And they have your email address, and hopefully people will reach out. Also, thanks to the chamber, they put the toolkit link in the chat as well. So I do hope everyone takes advantage of that. I do want to just speak a little candidly. You've been very warm and welcoming. As you said, you're a welcomer. To everyone in this group and beyond, that for them to come to you, to come to OTT, so that you can navigate them around. Let's speak a little candidly, though. Is there a threshold kind of size of organization, small business? You know, is there a certain level of competence that you're looking for? You know, I think everyone doesn't want to waste anyone's time. Like, is there a threshold to the type of endeavor that comes in your direction? And you don't have to define it by dollar value, but
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a good question. I would say that, you know, I failed to mention, it's not OTT, but there is a program at DOE called the Small Business Innovative Research Program. So it is geared towards small business that want to do research. Let me give you an example that what kind of company might not benefit. So there might be small businesses that want to put solar panels on their facilities. You know, DOE will probably not fund that type of project. Now, we have tools that can help you design the projects, that can help you, figure out what the payback is on those kind of projects. But if you're looking for funding to put solar panels, DOE is certainly not the place. We would be we'd be helping if there is a small business that has an idea for a new technology and wants to somehow partner with DOE on getting that idea up and running. That would certainly be something that we're capable of. If there's a university that really wants to get more involved in some of the programs that we have at DOE, not necessarily funding programs, but whether it's a building technologies working group or being part of an email list that that advertises opportunities for energy efficiency, there's all kinds of ways to engage with DOE and become more energy savvy. If a small business is not very energy savvy, if a small business is energy savvy, then they can become a lot more involved in what some of the new technologies that were being that are being developed. So it's really hard to define what kind of entity we're looking for. It's so broad. It's really, really broad. And it's beyond, right? It's beyond getting money. There's a lot out there for small businesses to engage with us where no money is exchanged.
Understood. And getting your points on all fronts, that there's no secret sauce. There's no formula that if you've got, this plus this plus this equals, success, with the DOE in a partnership. Give us a sense, do you have examples of, in your experience at OTT and beyond, of a small business coming to DOE and you being able to link them up for the purpose of success, somewhere within the agency? They came to OTT and you found a home for them.
Right. So, just recently I was contacted by a community. Well, let me think about small business, because that's not really what small business. So yeah, okay. I am actually in my previous role. Let's talk about loan programs, where, like I described before, it's the financing arm. So we would certainly have a lot of small businesses coming to us looking for funding for very small projects. And the loan programs office is really geared toward very, very large projects. Like they're medium. The medium size of project that they would work in is $200 to $300, $400 million, right? So we would come across a lot of small businesses that were, looking for much less capital than that. And myself, and I'm still in this role, because I know a lot of people outside of the department and inside the department, and I have really good relationships. I know a lot of people that are willing to talk to small businesses about other ideas that they can pursue for their business. Whether it's, if it's something solar related, we have partners in the solar technologies program. That's by far one of the most popular. But maybe it's the fossil business. I know there might be small oil and gas drilling companies that are thinking about a new technology. We have contacts in that office. So there is no way that there's no way we couldn't be able to help a small business. It just might not be. It's a big place, so it might take some time to find the right people. But if and that's also a good indicator of the small business's commitment, if they're willing to work with us to try to help them. It will certainly take some time, but we cherish and we welcome all that input from the private sector.
Again, just one more reminder to the audience. Please do use the chat Q&A function to ask your questions. I've got one question coming out of there, which is technical. Let's see if this falls up your alley. Can you speak to the Gartner hype cycle in the context of IoT and smart technologies? Is that, and the question specifically is that new technology hype, or is it actually getting commercial market availability? Are you familiar with the Gartner hype cycle?
No, I must say I am not familiar with that technology. I apologize.
No, That's quite all
I
right.
can find somebody who is, I can tell you
There we
that, but
Again, the welcomer. You are the welcomer at DOE. So I think I just want to drill down one layer deeper, just to fully get. We have a depth and breadth of audience. This will be recorded. Other people can watch it at other times, and just getting the sense of, did I get this right? That if you are, let's just say, in solar or you're in fossil fuels, you're a small business, and you're looking for resources, or you're essentially saying, I've got this block in the R&D phase or whatever phase I'm in. What am I right in getting that maybe they could just start with OT&T rather than just scouring the entire website, or should they start somewhere else?
I'd say they could definitely start with OTT. I always encourage anyone that reaches out to us to, get a little familiar with our office and DOE in general. And that's simply just going to our website, right? It certainly helps the conversation, because whenever I do meet with small businesses, and they know a little bit about the office and they kind of know what direction they want to do, it makes my job a lot easier, so I know how to help them. Because otherwise, we're spending time on going through what we just went through, right? All the different programs and opportunities. And so it does help when the individual or individuals are somewhat familiar, have an idea on where they want to go with. But certainly, like I said, the OTT is the business development arm for the department. And so we certainly want to be that first point of contact. We have, I'm not the only commercialization executive. We have a team of commercialization executives, and we're continuing to grow that out because of the interest that we are getting, and a lot more. And thanks to our executive director, Dr. Vanessa Chan, who's been really hitting the pavement now on getting private sector entities interested and aware of what we're doing. So certainly OTT would be a good place to start.
In your experience, as we're coming to a close here, I just wanted to think about, in your experience of working, for example, you gave the nuclear example, and you were very clear in saying that nuclear is kind of a weird fish because it's a lot of capital just to get going, it's big dollars involved, and even on the modular side, it's not small change.
That's correct.
Is there a space that DOE can facilitate for subcontracts in those efforts? Let's just say in developing a prototype, is there a space there where the actual larger entity that's putting together the prototype, that there are some gaps to be filled, and is that a place where DOE plays matchmaker in some ways?
Absolutely. Great question. So OTT, one of its big focuses is the National Laboratory System. And the National Laboratory System, like I said, 17 national labs all over the country. Each lab specializes in a certain technology. So the nuclear technology would be in Idaho. We have an Idaho National Laboratory. Renewable technologies would be NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Golden, Colorado. And so we have programs, and we have a specific system called the Lab Partnering System that if you're single, I'm not talking to married people, but this is the analogy that I was told, like Match.com, the dating site, right? The Lab Partnering System is the Match.com for the private sector and the national tab. So if there's a technology, if there is a person, if there is a patent that you've come across that you're interested in, this service, which is a website on the OTT website, can guide you to information about this technology. It can guide you to the individual who might be working in that area. It can guide you to the lab that is doing this. One example that you just mentioned that made me think of it is that there are some national laboratories that will work with an entity to maybe test out their prototype because they have the facilities, right? And so there are contract mechanisms between the private sector and the national laboratories that they can enter into. One's called a CRADA, a Cooperative Research Development Agreement, where they enter into an agreement where they develop a technology together, right? There are a few other contracting mechanisms along those lines. That's one that seems to stick out in my head. But you can actually, if you'd like, you don't have to enter into any type of contract. You can just contact the national lab or some of the individuals that are working in a sector. If a business wants to get more educated on a certain type of technology. So I would really emphasize going to this lab partnering service, the LPS. It's on the OTT website as well, and just play around with it. By the way, it's just kind of cool. It's very visual.
Yeah.
You're kind of point and click. So I would encourage people to reach out, look at it, see if they can find someone they can talk to.
Well, I hope someone from the chamber is just like they've been doing it all along. If someone could find that link and put it in, that would be great. But you're calling a lab partnering service that's detailed on the OTT website. So hopefully everyone who's following along can get that level of detail. As we're coming to a close here, I would love to just hear about one other component of your work that we haven't touched too much on yet. Please let us know, what are you working on in clean tech? Clean tech with philanthropy and such.
Yeah, so you know, I like to talk about history. So let me go back a minute. In the early 2000s, there was a lot of excitement. There was in the late 2000s, there was a lot of excitement about clean tech. The Obama administration had put a lot of money into deploying clean tech. There was a lot of investment from well-known investors. Vinod Khosla comes to mind. But because it's new, and I had mentioned before, new technology is risky. And some of this new technology just did not pan out, even though there was hundreds of millions of dollars that went into it. So what does that do to investors? It scares them off, right? And so now that kind of pot or that capital that was coming in at that time is not as big now because of, you know, the risk averseness of the investment community in clean tech demonstration and deployment. So what we are doing is we're trying to find new areas of capital that would be willing to partner with the department on some of this clean tech technology. And one area that is very exciting is philanthropies and foundations. Now, philanthropies and foundations historically have funded research, energy research, but there seems to be a renewed interest or a heightened interest in obviously climate change, you know, greenhouse gas reduction. And so we are making relationships that we might have not had before with these foundations and philanthropies to possibly partner with us. The beauty of philanthropies and foundations is they don't care about return on investment really, right? They just want to get their money out so it can help society. And so we believe that they would be a more willing partner to work with us on some of these really tough technology sectors that really need the capital so they can continue to infiltrate the market, right? The hydrogen sector is one that comes to mind that I'm working on. It's on the cusp, you know, it's in this demonstration kind of prototype phase, and it's really getting on the cusp of the market, but it needs some push. And so we need new avenues for capital to help get us over that hump.
Oh, it's very, very cool. And, you know, look, it's not something we're used to, those of us who sometimes can be cynical about government. That kind of fresh thinking is not something we always see, but it's so glad to see that you and your colleagues at OTT are doing that. I will just like to say, this has been a very nice discussion because it's so practical. And I hope you don't mind that we had to dive 3 different directions into kind of, you know, DOE, all agencies, frankly, at the federal government level are quite large, and they're quite something to navigate. By the way, thank you again to our friends at the Chamber. Labpartnering.org is the name of the site where they can find details on the work that the national labs are doing. But, you know, as we close, any last thoughts of advice for the Dallas-Fort Worth community, the U.S. India Chamber, and all of their well-wishers and supporters in the audience today who are all focused on small business? Any last couple of thoughts before we leave?
Well, first of all, thank you, Anurag, for doing this. You made it so easy. You made it so, really appreciate it. And I hope we can meet.
Absolutely.
I know you're in the area, you're in the DC area, so I hope we can meet. But to the audience, again, thank you for this time to meet you. And again, I really am sincere in that if there is tax, I am that person. If I can't help you, I will find somebody that will. It's part of my job. And we certainly want to partner with. And I have not done a lot of work with entities in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, so I am certainly open to it. And I hope that you can help us spread the word about our programs as well. It's another way for us to get the word out about what's available. So I hope we can work together.
Oh, Edward, I think we're losing you right now, but I agree with your sentiment. I hope that there's a way that your office can work together with the Dallas-Fort Worth community, the business community, the educational community. Please keep an eye on all of the links that we put forward. And I'm sure that if you missed it on the chat, that the chamber can plug the gaps. Thank you, everyone, for the conversation today. I'd like to turn it back to Neil. And thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you so much, Anurag and Edward. I think we really had a very insightful conversation. We don't usually engage with federal agencies. So, as part of our mission of connecting our businesses to local, state, and federal offices and agencies, we're always glad to engage with the federal agencies, and we're really glad to be able to engage with DOE today. So just helping us meet our mission on that. And so we want to thank Anurag and Infosys, of course, for your generous support of this program and of the chamber, and then also thank Edward for your time, especially while you're on vacation. But I think that really speaks to your mission and passion for helping connect the business community into the Department of Energy. I think that, if we can in any way for any of the members that are on today's call help to facilitate conversations for you, that's what we are here for. And I just want to give a shout out to Rachel Dupen and Susan Phillips, also, who have been graciously posting those links in the chat box for members to connect with those resources. So with that, I want to thank you, Edward and Anurag, for your time and your very insightful conversation on this topic. And I do hope that we can strengthen the Texas DC corridor through conversations like this and future conversations as well. With that, let me hand it over to our team to close us out for the day.
Wallace Bank is a full-service community bank that serves our communities with integrity, pride, and professionalism. Since 1906, we have been providing support for small and local businesses and providing financial services that are unsurpassed in customer satisfaction. We pride ourselves in our personalized customer service and ability to create long-lasting relationships with our customers. Please visit our website or come by one of our 13 locations to talk to a representative today.
I hope you all enjoyed our small business forum as we explored sustainability as a business opportunity. It was good if any part of it inspired you to make a change. And of course, we know big changes start with small actions. And we have a duty as global citizens to be good stewards of the earth. And as business owners, you have an even greater calling to do right by the earth, your community, and your employees. So doing the right thing is just good business. Before we close the event, I would like to thank all of our board members, sponsors, and community partners. And of course, a big thank you to all of our speakers, starting with Mr. Trammell S. Crow with EarthX, Mr. Satish Gupta with SB International, Dr. Diane McNulty with the Naveen Jindal School of Management at UT Dallas, Warwick Walker with Atmos Energy, Robert Horton with DFW International Airport, Dr. Meghna Tare with University of Texas at Arlington, Roshan Bani with Nexus PMG, Bryant Shaw with Dallas ISD, Greg Obar with the University of North Texas, Clarabelle Diaz with Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, Anurag Varma with Infosys, and Edward Rios with the Office of Technology Transitions in the Department of Energy. Thank you all for your incredible contribution today and for inspiring us to do more. And with that, I will say goodbye. And until we meet again, stay safe, everyone, and see you next time. Thank you.